Florida's only Democrat elected statewide is Agriculture and Consumer Services Commissioner Nikki Fried, who is stepping up her fundraising and her public profile, possibly getting ready to run for governor.
Fried live streamed getting her first vaccine this week and at the same time stepping up critique on the state's handling of that process and more. Commissioner Nikki Fried Skyping in with us today. Good morning. Well, good afternoon now.
Commissioner,
great to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks for being with us.
All right, I'm going to ask you something. I'm going to ask you the first, of course, the first question kind of may set the tone for the rest of this next 9 minutes. And officially live on This Week in South Florida, Nikki Fried, will you be running for governor?
As I've said, this is something that needs to be elevated in conversation. And as our only statewide elected Democrat, more and more people have come to me every day asking me to throw my name in the hat because they're disappointed. And quite frankly, I agree with them on how the governor has not only handled the pandemic, how he's governing it at the state of Florida. So we're getting very close to making a final decision, and certainly we'll let you all know as soon as we do so.
Why does it feel like a foregone conclusion already?
I think because of the fact that I've been holding the governor accountable since we got elected, because we're putting forth great solutions across the state, that we're doing our job as Commissioner of Agriculture, and we are again holding the governor accountable on a pretty consistent basis. And so you're seeing a lot of, the contrast between myself and Ron DeSantis on our leadership styles, our empathy towards the people of the state of Florida, how we handle crises, and how we're policy and solution driven are very different and distinct. And so I think that people in the state of Florida are seeing those different types of qualities and are wanting a difference and wanting a change. And it's not just about Ron DeSantis. It's really about the Republican Party of Florida and 20 plus years of their running of our state. I mean, look what's happening right now in Piney Point. That's because of the deregulation that's been going on of phosphate mining for 20 plus years here in our state. The people of our state are really wanting different leadership, wanting different styles, and that's probably why people think it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Commissioner, let's talk a little bit about the governor and the way he has handled the COVID-19 crisis for the last 13 months or so. As the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Health said at the very beginning of the show, maybe you heard her, 3.3 million Floridians have been vaccinated, gotten both shots or a Johnson & Johnson shot. All things considered, that would seem to be a pretty fair record. And at the same time, the economy has been relatively open. Unemployment now is down to relatively about 6%. That's all on the plus side, isn't it?
Absolutely. First off, having our economy open is always going to be a good thing. And that's something that I have been pushing for from day one, that in order for our economy to really be able to start back up and to jumpstart, especially tourism is our number one, industry economically, and agriculture is number two. In order for us to have been successful, we needed to have taken these precautions, getting the vaccinations, having social distancing still, masking up, and it is our local governments and our businesses that have stepped up during this time and trying to protect the people of their communities and to the patrons that are coming into these restaurants and to these other businesses.
All right, so let me if I may, just jump in and say, if you had been governor and local municipalities, cities, counties wanted to enforce a mask ordinance with a fine, which in fact Broward, Miami-Dade, other places did, the governor said, no, you can't do that. Would you have allowed them to do that?
I would have, and I still would have, because that shows leadership, saying, look, we're all going to do this together. And the only way for us to have really slowed down the virus, and the best thing that we know, is the social distancing and wearing of the mask. This should have never been political. From day one, this should have been something that we collectively all work together on, whether it's local governments, state governments, bipartisan support with the White House. That didn't happen here. And so you had very chaotic leadership styles here, and just a free-for-all. And when the local governments were trying to show leadership, the governor first said yes, then they said no, and really created a chaos at the local level and didn't give direction to the locals. And so we needed to have this complete partnership. And you talk to all of our mayors all across the state of Florida, and they're going to tell you they've had very little interaction with the governor. That's not leadership. No one knows how to get through this pandemic at the very beginning. This is something that no leader is trained how to do. So you bring people together and you say, okay, what are some ideas? What are some solutions? What can I do to give you the power necessary to protect your communities? The governor never did that. He kind of was a hands-off approach. And then when he wanted to come back in, then he slapped the local governments, not letting them do what was necessary. And that's not a leadership style that the people of the state of Florida want. They want consistency, they want transparency, and they wanted people to show leadership, which is why I got my shot this week and did it publicly so people know, trust the science, get your vaccines, and that is what a showing of a true leader does.
Commissioner, you leveled some pretty serious charges. You had asked for a federal investigation into whether the governor was using sort of a pay-to-play system to dispense vaccines at the very beginning and possibly after. He has denied that. It is a narrative that I will be frank to tell you we have found no specific proof for. And to sort of take politics out of it, the Division of Emergency Management Director Jared Moskowitz has denied it. He's a Democrat. What proof do you have? Why would you level those accusations?
Because when there's smoke, there's fire. And it wasn't just one incident that happened. You know, it was everything from, first starting off with Publix. And then it was what happened in Manatee County, where you had, local electeds that were putting together VIP lists, specific zip codes, which is the only time when you had a specific zip code and you couldn't have other people going into those areas to get the vaccines. That zip code happened to have been the wealthiest area of the county. We had campaign contributions. You saw the same thing a little bit further south. And of course, you had the issue at Ocean Reef.
So let me just, because the governor is not here to defend himself, I will tell you what we have heard from them, is that the governor, and we know this to be true, that the dispensing of the vaccines was given locally to various hospitals, various institutions, and those decisions that you're talking about were made on a more local level without the governor's without the governor having an active part in those decisions, which I'm sure you know. So hospitals dispense them. What the local leaders did on the Southwest coast that you're talking about, might that have been their own activity?
And I disagree with that, because here's a couple of things. First off, we know from the county commissioner that was over in Manatee that she had direct communication with the governor's office and was asked to put together a VIP list. And then there was the back and forth communication that happened down in Ocean Reef between First Baptist saying we were told to reallocate our allotment per the governor's office. There was back and forth communication there that shows that there was not up and up. And then I go back to my general premise. None of this would have happened if the governor had actually created a plan in place. And instead, that the governor, went MIA for 3 weeks in November, claiming that he was putting together a statewide plan. That ended up being absolutely a false narrative that he put out in November. And when I've talked to a significant amount of hospital administrators across the state, they were caught off guard. That they were the ones originally supposed to distribute the vaccines. And then we changed it to Publix's. And even that you're going to see tonight later on at one of the interviews is that the governor tried saying, we talked to Palm Beach County, and the person who's in charge in Palm Beach County said that conversation never happened. So you kept having these changes in where these vaccines were going to be distributed. There was no regulatory oversight. And so even if the governor wasn't hands-on on making the official decision to put a vaccine location in the exclusive donor community of Ocean Reef, because of the fact that he had no plan, no oversight, no communication with those who were distributing the vaccines, this was allowed to happen. And he refuses from time and time again to take any ownership and any blame for any of the situation across the state, whether it was the pandemic, whether it was not vaccinating certain communities, everything along the way. He has tried to put blame on other groups of people. Look, he is the governor of the state of Florida. If there is a problem with the vaccine distribution and how COVID has been dealt with in the state, the buck has got to stop.
Well, we know where the buck stops. It's on the governor's desk. He says it stopped well. You say it didn't. But anyway, Commissioner Freed, always good to have you on our program. We wish you well, and we will be following any upcoming announcements about your political future.
And we invite you to make it right here with us.
Sounds good. Back to my hometown.
Thank you very much.